Were you consulted by the White House before they deployed National Guard troops to cities in the United States?
I am not going to discuss any internal conversations with the White House.
You won't even say whether you talked to the White House about this?
I am not going to discuss any internal conversations with the White House with you, Ranking Member.
I noticed that. What's the secret? Why do you want to keep this secret? The American people don't know the rationale behind it.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, share, and stick around for more simple and dramatic retellings of big political and celebrity moments.
Deployment of National Guard troops in my state. The word is, and I think it's been confirmed by the White House, they are going to transfer Texas National Guard units to the state of Illinois. What's the rationale for that?
Yeah, Chairman, as you shut down the government, you voted to shut down the government, and you're sitting here, our law enforcement officers aren't being paid. They're out there working to protect you. I wish you loved Chicago as much as you hate President Trump. And currently, the National Guard are on the way to Chicago. If you're not going to protect your citizens, President Trump will.
You won't believe the heated exchange that happened in this meeting. It started off calm, but quickly turned into a serious reality check. Let's break it down step by step.
Been on this committee for more than 20 years. That's the kind of testimony you expect from this administration. A simple question as to whether or not a legal rationale for deploying National Guard troops becomes grounds for personal. I think it's a legitimate question. It's my responsibility. She refuses to answer as to whether she had any conversation with the White House about deploying national troops to my state. That's an indication, I'm afraid, where we are politically in this place. Let me ask you another question. I want to, if you will, hold on a second. Make sure I got the right page of facts here. You testified under oath when you last before this committee, before your appointment to Attorney General. You had served as a representative of some sort for the royal family of Qatar. There was an issue that came before you in May when President Trump accepted a $400 million luxury jet from the royal family of Qatar for temporary use as Air Force One before it's permanently gifted to the Trump Presidential Library Foundation. The Constitution unequivocally bestows on Congress the power to control whether any officer of the United States, including the President, may accept a gift, quote, from any king, prince, or foreign state, end of quote. And this gift clearly violates the statutory regime enacted by Congress. You've refused to answer a letter I sent to you 5 months ago, asking the legal rationale you relied on to advise President Trump to accept this unprecedented gift from your former legal client. Can you make a promise today that you will disclose that?
Disclose what, Ranking Member?
I assume there was a letter or some sort of statement from your office to the White House to advise them that you felt it was permissible.
First, to address my role, Qatar, as I addressed with you during my confirmation hearing, I disclosed it in my SJQ. In private practice, I worked for Qatar for anti-human trafficking for the World Cup. That was my only involvement, and I made that very clear, and I'm very proud of everything I've done with anti-human trafficking. Obviously, in preparing any advice for the President on a jet or anything else, we consult with the Office of Legal Counsel. Confidentiality applies to their input as well. And Chairman, if you would approve and vote to approve, as Chairman Grassley said, Ranking Member, as Chairman Grassley said, my employees, we would answer your letters a lot faster, yet you're stalling them at every stop. And to go back to your previous question, your city has a murder rate 5 times higher than New York's. 571 homicides last year. If you were serious about protecting your people, you would be asking this administration for help. You're saying that we're coming into your state and your city. We're there to help make America safe and Illinois safe, whether or not you want to.
I believe cutting federal grant programs to law enforcement in my state and across the nation does not make us any safer, and you've done just that. You've supplanted that decision by sending in National Guard troops to California and other places. It's a situation where the governors have not asked for that help. If you truly wanted to do this on a bipartisan basis, You wouldn't defy a governor, you would work with them. I'm prepared to do that. I'm prepared to work with this administration. Cutting these grants to law enforcement does not make us any stronger as a nation or give us the tools we need to reduce crime in Chicago. Now, I'd just like to ask you, when it came to this Qatar situation, did you consult with the ethics office in the Department of Justice before making your decision on this gift of a jet?
Chairman, I didn't gift a jet to anyone. My Office of Legal Counsel provides confidential advice to the President, to the White House, period. And you're conflating two issues. Cutting grants. I was very clear about what grants we've cut and what grants we haven't. Only 7%. And if you have a grant in Illinois that you think that I've cut that is protecting law enforcement officers or your people, you personally call me and I will work with you to turn that grant back on. I think many of the Democrats here can tell you, I have worked with them to turn grants back on. There's an appeal process. Tell me a specific grant that I have turned off in Illinois that would help law enforcement, and I will work with you. But you have not done that. The National Guard is on the way right now as we speak. Oh, by the way, so is Director Patel and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. You're sitting here grilling me, and they're on their way to Chicago to keep your state safe.
Madam Attorney General, it's my job to grill you. Investigation of your agency is part of my responsibility in this committee. You may not like the experience, but others have weathered the storm and answered questions in a respectful manner.
Were you asked by the White House before National Guard troops were sent to cities in the U.S.? The member asked. The Attorney General replied calmly, I'm not going to talk about any private conversations I had with the White House. The member pressed again. So you won't even say whether you spoke to them about it? She repeated, I'm not going to discuss internal talks with the White House. Ranking member. The member seemed frustrated. Why is this such a secret? Why can't the American people know? I don't even know the reason behind sending National Guard troops to my state. The White House already confirmed that Texas National Guard units are being moved to Illinois. What's the reason for that? The Attorney General shot back, Chairman, you voted to shut down the government. And now law enforcement officers aren't getting paid while they're out there risking their lives to protect you. I wish you love Chicago as much as you hate President Trump. The National Guard is already heading to Chicago. If you won't protect your citizens, President Trump will. The member frowned. I've been in Congress for over 20 years, and this is the kind of response I get from this administration? All I asked was a simple question about the legal reason for sending National Guard troops. Instead, I get a personal attack. She refuses to answer whether she talked to the White House about it. That shows how divided we've become politically. He looked down at his papers and continued, Let me ask another question. When you testified here last time, you said that before becoming Attorney General, you represented the royal family of Qatar. In May, President Trump accepted a $400 million luxury jet from that same royal family for temporary use as Air Force One, before it was gifted to the Trump Presidential Library Foundation. The Constitution clearly says that Congress decides whether any U.S. official, even the president, can accept a gift from a foreign government. This gift breaks that rule. You never answered the letter I sent you 5 months ago asking how you justified telling President Trump it was okay to accept this gift from your former client. Can you promise today that you'll make that advice public? The Attorney General replied, Disclose what, ranking member? He said, I assumed there was a letter or some kind of statement from your office to the White House saying it was okay. She answered, as I told you before during my confirmation hearing, I did work for Qatar, but only on anti-human trafficking efforts for the World Cup. That was my only connection, and I'm proud of that work. When we give legal advice to the president, we always consult the Office of Legal Counsel, and their advice is confidential too. And ranking member, if you would stop blocking my employees, as Chairman Grassley mentioned, we could respond to your letters a lot faster. You're stalling them. Then she added sharply, also, your city's murder rate is 5 times higher than New York's, 571 homicides last year. If you truly cared about protecting people, you'd be asking this administration for help. You're upset that we're sending National Guard troops to your state, but we're doing it to help make Illinois and America safe, whether you like it or not. The member responded firmly, cutting federal grants to law enforcement in my state and across the country doesn't make us safer. You've taken away funding and replaced it by sending in the National Guard to states like California, where governors never asked for help. If you really wanted to work together, you'd cooperate with governors, not defy them. I'm ready to work with this administration, but cutting law enforcement grants weakens our country and makes it harder to reduce crime in Chicago. Now let me ask again, before you made that decision about the Qatar jet, did you check with the ethics office at the Department of Justice? The Attorney General replied, Chairman, I didn't give any jet to anyone. My office provides confidential legal advice to the President and the White House. That's it. And you're mixing up two separate issues. About the grants, I was clear on which ones we cut and which we didn't. Only 7% were cut. If there's a grant in Illinois that helps law enforcement and you think I cut it unfairly, call me directly. I'll help you get it reinstated. Many Democrats can tell you I've done that before. There's an appeal process. But you haven't even told me which grant you're talking about. Did you check? She continued, by the way, the National Guard is already on the way to Chicago right now, along with Director Patel and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. You're sitting here grilling me, but they're heading there to keep your state safe. The member responded calmly, Madam Attorney General, it's my job to question you. Investigating your agency is part of my duty and this committee's role. You may not enjoy this experience, but others before you have gone through it and answered respectfully.